Evening all. So this is a video I've been meaning to do for a while now, and that's to go through the main file that I produce and talk in real detail about how all of these fields are brought about, just so you've got a full understanding of exactly what you're looking at, because there are some differences between how I produce this and how other data providers produce their stuff, mainly around the averages. So I just want to have absolute clarity on what this is. So the first field I want to talk about is just this top 5 league, and all that is the player in a PB eligible league. So is that Bundesliga, League One, La Liga, Serie A, or the Premier League? So those 5 leagues. So you can quickly filter out who's PB eligible. You've also got the European leagues here you can filter out as well. Latest buy is the latest buy price in the data set. So that won't mean today's price. That will mean the price that the last time they've registered a value. And that's usually through them scoring either PB points or MB points, or when I do a bulk price upload. So that's what that's in there. So always just double check that and see where it is in relation. It's normally pretty close, but just bear that in mind because some of the more obscure players that you might look at might be a little bit out. PB divs are simply how many dividends have they scored from PB this season. G&A divs is how many dividends they've earned through goals and assists for the last 30 days from the day the sheet is produced. So if it's produced on Saturday the 5th, it would go back to 30 days before that and tell you how many dividends they've earned in the last 30 days. MB dividends is how many MB dividends they've earned this season. And the total is a sum of all of those, basically. Then you've just got last season dividends, which is basically a sum of PB dividends and MB dividends for last season for that player. The return, this is just the total dividends produced this season divided by the latest buy price. Days since last win is how many days since they've last won a dividend of a major type. So that's either a PB dividend or an MB dividend. MB average is the average of all media buzz scores that they've produced this season. And MB wins is any time they've actually come top. So it doesn't count the seconds and thirds. It's about if they won on either an 8p day or a 5p day. Home PB and away PB, I'm going to talk about in combination with PB average because they're basically the same thing, but they're the average for the home and the away. Now, PB average is the average of all PB scores where the player actually set foot on the pitch. So he might play 30 seconds, he might play 90 minutes, but that's what he needs to do to register these points. So I basically exclude all of those points when they're sitting on the bench of sort of the 18 points for a win, minus 15 for a loss, where they're just sitting on the bench doing nothing. Because for me, it's more reflective of what you're actually trying to measure, is you want to know how many points the guy earned when he was on the pitch, not how many he's earned sitting on the bench. It's going to skew your average slightly. Next, you've got average of top 5. Now, what this is simply an average of their top 5 PB scores this season. And it's just a nice little way to filter out and have a look in combination with the max to see, you know, how often are they getting those really high scores. And, you know, elsewhere in the sheet, you can look at what those top 5 scores are, and I'll come to that later on. PB max is nice and simple. It's just simply the maximum score they've ever achieved this season. PB base is basically their PB score each time. It's an average of their PB score, but it's excluding all external factors, so unusual factors. So it excludes points for goals, game-winning goals, clean sheets, win or loss, or own goals. So basically, if a player loses a game, he'd normally get minus 15 points. This adds 15 points to that score. Or if they would win a game, they would have got 18 points. It takes those 18 points off. So it's basically their base performance from passing, tackling, etc. to give you an idea of what their typical standard score is. Average minutes is simply the number of average minutes they've played football. PB per minute is simply the average PB divided by the average minutes to give you a PB per minute. Now, starts up, goals and assists. Goals and clean sheets. All of these, the metrics are effectively either from the start of the season or when the player joined the index. So if a player didn't join the index until January, then they would only have data from January. I haven't gone back and retrofitted back to September anyone who's joined the index late. So these are the start, sub appearances, goals and clean sheets since they joined the index. Assists is slightly different because assists wasn't being captured until the announcement of the first goal and assist trial. So this is essentially from when they announced those first goals and assists, or when the player joined the index, whichever of those is the most recent event. PB count greater than X, this is called peak scores elsewhere. What this basically is a number of times, for my data set, it's the number of times a player has exceeded 180 PB points, because I think that's a really good indicator of how likely they are to win PB. And you'll find that generally these are pretty well correlated. I mean, Cruz is a massive outlier here because he's exceeded that score 7 times but only won PB twice. Whereas if you look at the other top few, you've got some nice correlation there between Kimmich 7 and 8, Messi 6 and 5, Neymar 6 and 5. So it matches quite well to whether or not people are winning PB, but it gives you a bit more data to look at. Next, you've got PB wins, which is essentially just how many times they've won PB. Top 3 and top 5. What this is it's a new metric. It's been around for about 6 weeks. I've been capturing this data now. And what this is basically looking at how many times that player was in the top 3 scores for that day they were playing, or the top 5 scores. So you can see, bear in mind, I've only been capturing this for about 6-7 weeks now. Kimmich has managed to get into that top 3 spot 6 times in that amount of time. So that's quite a serious return. PB Predictor is a calculation using a combination of this season's and last season's data, which is weighted, and basically what it looks at is a combination of PB average, PB max, and PB greater than X, and it combines them into one sort of figure sum, which is hopefully sort of indicative of how well a player is performing across the board, and could be used to work out how likely they might be to win PB. Then we got some last season data, which is basically the same as the other stuff. And then we've just got all of this stuff here, which is all around your profit and loss, which we've covered in a different video. So if we go into the player detail tab, I'll just quickly show you. So down here, you've got the top 5 PB scores. So the 5 PB scores, that they're best PB scores for that player this season. And then you've got their last 5 PB scores, with the most recent at the top and the least recent at the bottom. And as usual, up here, you just basically pick the player from the drop down that you want to look at. So if you wanted to look at Sterling, you could just select Sterling and that will all update. And you can compare up to 5 players nice and simply there, with it highlighting who the best winner is in each category with the green banner there. And that's basically it, guys. Just want to give you a high level summary of all the fields so you know exactly what you're looking at. So once again, any feedback's welcome. If you're looking to sign up to this data, email noirx4@hotmail.com. That's NOIRX4@hotmail.com. Thanks very much.